Good morning, everyone. It's Wednesday, March 24th. From the San Antonio Express News, my name is Luis Vasquez, and this is your Express Briefing. All of the stories you need to know to start your day. You can expect a high of 79 degrees with a chance of showers in San Antonio today. Are you feeling lucky, basketball fans? We're giving away 2 tickets to the April 21st home game at the AT&T Center in San Antonio. Head over to expressnews.com to find out how to enter. Also, the Express News is still accepting nominations for our 2021 Top Workplaces competition. Any organization with 35 or more employees in the San Antonio area can participate. You can get more information in this episode's description. And now let's move on to our top stories for the day. When Bexar County was struggling to find safe places for a highly motivated population to vote, the Spurs organization stepped up to offer the spacious AT&T Center as a first-of-its-kind mega voting site. Like some other NBA teams, the Spurs lent the facility, which the county owns but the Spurs lease, for use during early voting and on Election Day on November 3rd. It seemed like a generous gesture, until the county got a whopping $255,716 bill from the Spurs. That was in December. Head over to expressnews.com to check out the story of how the price commissioners agreed to pay came out to $126,200. Bexar County commissioners laid the groundwork Tuesday for a 10-year, $388 million economic recovery plan to be funded by the $1.9 trillion coronavirus rescue package recently approved by Congress and signed by President Joe Biden. The commissioners directed County Manager David Smith to negotiate a contract with Guidehouse, a consulting firm, to devise strategies for maximizing the federal aid. Guidehouse is advising other local governments, including Harris, Travis, and Tarrant counties, on how to best leverage the federal stimulus dollars. Scott Huddleston has a look at what else was on the agenda for county leaders, including vaccine distribution. As women's shelters in Texas have faced a wave of domestic violence calls during the pandemic, lawmakers in D.C. are pushing to bolster the Violence Against Women Act for the first time in nearly a decade. The House this month passed a sweeping rewrite of the landmark law aimed at preventing domestic abuse, sexual violence, and stalking by U.S. Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, a Houston Democrat who will now try to shepherd the bill through the evenly divided Senate, where Republicans are expected to put up stiff resistance to key provisions in it. The reauthorization push comes as police departments report increases in domestic violence calls over the last year. Advocates in Texas say they've become overwhelmed for the last year as people in abusive relationships were often stuck at home amid rising stress and economic hardship of the pandemic. Benjamin Wormund has everything you need to know over at expressnews.com. Given the ugly history between the two sides, Mayor Ron Nirenberg's friendly sit-down meeting with the San Antonio Police Officers Association leadership this week felt vaguely akin to Anwar al-Sadat visiting Israel in 1977, writes Gilbert Garcia. There wasn't much to the meeting. According to the new SAPOA president Danny Diaz, it was a simple meet and greet that lasted no more than 30 minutes. But the meeting itself was the message. It signaled a new detente between two previously warring forces, at a time when both sides have a lot at stake. Nirenberg cemented that detente by telling Diaz he supports collective bargaining for the union, the closest he has come to overtly taking a side on Fix SAPD's proposition. The timing of the meeting was also hard to overlook. Head over to expressnews.com to read Gilbert Garcia's full column. Texans will be the first large state to open vaccine eligibility to its entire adult population starting Monday, March 29th. Tuesday's announcement comes just a week after the state began allowing all Texans 50 and over to receive a shot. With the vaccine supply expected to increase greatly in the coming weeks, health officials say now is the time to expand access. Not so fast, say San Antonio leaders, though. Local health officials implored newly eligible residents Tuesday to hold off on seeking appointments for now, and announced new measures to prioritize those who were previously eligible but still haven't gotten a COVID-19 shot. Next up are your need-to-know headlines. You can find all of these headlines and more inside of your Express News subscription. Some of the overflow children being detained at the US-Mexico border are likely to be brought to Joint Base San Antonio-Lackland and Fort Bliss, according to Pentagon spokesman John Kirby on Tuesday. The nonprofit Alamo Trust has named Kate Rogers, a former manager at H-E-B Groceries, as the new Alamo executive director. CPS Energy has sued 14 more natural gas companies that the city-owned utility accuses of price gouging during last month's winter storm. With these lawsuits, the utility has now targeted 16 natural gas suppliers for price gouging. San Antonio ISD this week began welcoming more kids back to classrooms, with a goal of ending the school year with its campuses at 70% capacity. To do that, the district also plans to make vaccines available to all staff and teachers by April. As the San Antonio Police Officers Union fights a ballot measure to strip them of the right to bargain for wages and benefits, Mayor Ron Nirenberg told the head of the union he supports that right. A tip to law officers led police to a tractor-trailer unloading dozens of suspected undocumented immigrants, resulting in 60 to 70 people being detained, according to Pearsall Police on Tuesday. On the latest episode of our Puro Politics podcast, hear how political fatigue and Ron Nirenberg's refusal to debate have conspired to drain the energy from the campaign for mayor. Over the last year, as fallout from the pandemic has ravaged low-income renters, rents have risen more sharply in the least expensive neighborhoods, a Zillow report indicates. San Antonio is no exception. Texas Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller and conservative activist Dr. Stephen Hotsey, a prolific litigant, are suing Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick for requiring COVID-19 tests for entry into Texas Senate gallery and committee hearings. Demand for gasoline and diesel will remain nearly steady in North America over the next 10 years, according to a new report. The global electric vehicle and plug-in hybrid vehicle markets are expected to account for a fifth of new car sales by 2030. Texas politicians are moving very slowly to address the market failures that left 4 million homes without power on the coldest nights of the year and led to 57 deaths, writes business columnist Chris Tomlinson. Head over to expressnews.com to read his latest piece. The Express News editorial board writes, quote, "As time marches forward from the February storm that left millions of Texas freezing in the dark, it's become increasingly unlikely there will be real accountability or reform of the Texas grid or rate relief." Nell Fortner, the former New Braunfels and UT star and current Georgia Tech coach, sarcastically thanked the NCAA for giving people no choice but to realize it views women's basketball as an afterthought. You can read more in sports columnist Mike Finger's latest column. A group of investors plans to spend $5 million to turn an outdated Best Western in the struggling St. Paul Square on the northeast side into a trendy boutique hotel. In October, if the work goes as planned, the Aiden Hotel will replace the Best Western Plus Sunset Suites Riverwalk. The new property will open with updated and new rooms and a recreation of a basement speakeasy operated in the building during the Prohibition from 1920 to 1933. The COVID-19 pandemic may not be over, but the investors say they believe good times will be at least partially rolling again when the renovation is complete in October. In time for Easter's kickoff to deviled egg season, Paul Stephen busts the boiling myths and gives you the best way to boil eggs so they're easy to peel. It's hard to imagine a more Puro SA pandemic experience than a mountain of grilled meat, hot tortillas, and an array of fiery salsas arriving at your doorstep. Head over to expressnews.com to read how Asador 210 is bringing carne asada straight to your door. Writer Jan Jarbo Russell grew up listening to her mother and her mother's friends singing praises of Eleanor Roosevelt. That may have planted a seed that took decades to bloom. The San Antonio-based writer's latest book is about the former First Lady. The Spurs, whose 9-game homestand started with a disappointing loss to Charlotte, now face back-to-back games against the Los Angeles Clippers. The Spurs say it's time to make the most of their home court advantage. And that's all for today. This was your Express briefing for Wednesday, March 24th. My name is Luis Vasquez. Please consider becoming an Express News subscriber to get in-depth coverage on all the stories you heard today. Also, be sure to rate and review this podcast inside of your Apple Podcast app, as it really helps the show. Have a wonderful day, everyone.